So to check for some of the movement, we're going to add this into our update function. We're basically going to be looking for the position of our object. So we're going to be transforming this object, moving it around inside of our 3D space, and then we're going to check for its position. And what we want to do, we want to go in and we want to say that when our object or our player position is equal to, and we'll just say X number, then we want to stop our object. We want to make it so that it can't go any further. Now we could put collision boxes out and actually just have it hit those collision boxes, but we want to focus more on the scripting side. We want to say that if this object gets to a certain point, then how do we make it not move any further? The easiest way is we could just simply stop the player's speed, and then we'd have to do a lot more checks to say that, well, then if he's here but he's trying to go the other way, then we could increase the player's speed. Or we could just make his position equal to the position that he's at. So here we're going to say our player position, we're basically, for a conditional, if our player position is equal to, whatever number we choose, then let's make it equal to that number. So if it is equal to X, then number equals X. And this is basically how we can set it up to do what we want to do. So let's drop down and let's write out a conditional statement. We're going to just say if transform, let's actually get this one inside of it. We're going to say if the transform dot, and what do we have inside of our transform? Let's go inside, check our API, and we can actually just get to it from right here. We'll click on our transform. And if we scroll down, we've got variables inside of our transform, and one of the variables is position. And if we look over here, the position of the transform in world space. So this is going to give us the coordinates. Where is this object? So if I look at the object inside of the inspector right now, and I select on it, my transform right here, my position, X, Y, and Z. So right now my object in world space is at 0, 0, 0. If my object is to move over, then I start getting my variable changed for my x-axis, which means I could go in and I could actually set a range based on the world position of my object. So I could find out, well, what's my screen resolution going to be? Let's say we're locking it down to a 1024-768. Then I could actually just go in, drag my object over, and say, well, about 6. 6 gets me about to the edge of the world here. And if we check over here, we're about a -6 on this side. So that means that for the x coordinate, we want a 6 on one side and a -6 on the other to keep him in between this area on the game on our game view. So let's go back in here. We're going to say if transform dot position, and inside of position, what do we have? We've got a vector 3. So if we look, transform dot position equals a vector 3, 0, 0, 0. So let's go in and let's define this. Now, the vector 3 gives me an x, y, z. Now, I could go in and also get in just the dot x position. So I can go in and do a little more refinement here. So we're going to say if transform dot position dot x, when we're going to say is greater than or equal to 6, then our transform dot position dot x equals 6. And then we can go back over and say, well, if our transform dot position dot x is less than or equal to -6, then our transform equals -6. And this way we're able to constrain it within these 2 points. Now the other one we have is we've got our up and down as well. So we could also constrain how high are we going to let this object go, how low are we going to let this object go. But let's start off first. Let's make sure we don't have any errors in it. We'll go ahead and save it out. We'll go over to Unity. And once we go over, we click in Unity. We've got no console errors just yet. Let's go ahead and hit play. And let's use our arrow keys and go over. Aha! And aha! So we're able to get all the way over to -6. And we can see right here our transform position that we've kept our character at -6 here. If we move over to the other, you can see that we can make it all the way over position to 6. And our object stops. This way, we're able to constrain our object where we want. And one of the things to emphasize here is that we are just dealing with an object in 3D space. This is just all about finding a position in space and then getting that variable, passing it however we need, and defining it the way we want. So here we're just simply saying that in our 3D space, if something gets to this point, then it equals that point. And that's what we're doing. Okay, the next thing we can do is make some constraints for our up and down. I'm just going to copy this one out. And this is going to be along our Y position. So I'm just going to go back through. We're just going to change the position to Y. And then we need to find out how high is high, how low is low. And we're going to say roughly we're somewhere around -4. Do we want them to go all the way to the top? Maybe, maybe not. For right now, we'll say a +4 and about a -4. Somewhere in that range. That'll get us close, and then we can start playing with the numbers as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and change these to 4, 4, and 4. And let's save that one out. Let's go back over to Unity. And we'll hit play. And let's test this out. So we can go all the way to there, which is our 4, all the way to there, our -4. So what have we basically done? We basically created a box or a range that our object is able to translate and move in. And this is going to allow us our game space, keeps our player inside of the game, and lets us have some good solid boundaries to work within.